Another raid by Israeli forces in the West Bank. These vehicles headed towards the Jenin refugee camp. Palestinians say among the people killed in the raid was an elderly woman. An Israeli army statement says its forces conducted a counter-terrorism operation in the center of the Jenin camp to apprehend, quote, a terror squad belonging to Islamic Jihad organization. Israeli soldiers entered the building and also say they detonated 2 explosive devices and killed suspects. Clashes broke out as news broke of the killings. People pelted stones at Israeli vehicles in the vicinity. As the injured were taken to the nearest hospital, Palestinian Health Ministry accused Israeli forces of intentionally using tear gas inside a children's hospital ward. Medics say the situation in the refugee camp was critical, and Israeli forces were stopping ambulances from reaching people who were wounded. More than 24 Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank this month as Israeli forces have stepped up in what they call anti-terror operations. Osama Javaid, Al Jazeera.
Let's go to Imran Khan, who's joining us now from West Jerusalem. Imran, what is Israel's rationale for these raids?
Well, before we get to that, we've actually got a statement now from the Israeli military. It says security forces operated to apprehend a terror squad belonging to the Islamic Jihad terror organization. During the operation, the terror squad opened fire towards Israeli security forces. A crossfire was instigated during which 3 terrorists were neutralized. For that, Reed killed. The Islamic Jihad terror operatives were heavily involved in executing and planning multiple major terror attacks, including shooting attacks on IDF soldiers and Israeli civilians. So that's the official statement. Israel's rationale for these attacks is simply to go in and get what they call wanted terrorists, their words, wanted men out of that camp, and often there is a firefight. And, you know, Palestinians die, 29, I think, since the beginning of the year. There is no slowing down from the Israelis. They are mounting these raids near nightly. This particular raid, we're hearing from Israeli intelligence sources quoted by local media here saying that this was to thwart an imminent and major terror attack that was about to take place. Now, the Jenin refugee camp is quite concentrated, and the Israeli forces say they went into the middle of the camp to a building where these men were based, and they were trying to neutralize them. For that, Reed killed once more. So these raids, we're going to expect to see them more and more and more. This Israeli government is in no mood to back down, particularly when it comes to the Jenin refugee camp.
Imran, thank you very much indeed. That's Imran Khan talking to us from West Jerusalem. I want to bring in Al Jazeera's political analyst, Marwan Bashara. He's joining us from London on Skype. Marwan, as always, good to have you with us. These raids are continuing, but they're also increasing in intensity almost every time that they happen. Is there a sense that this is leading up to something, that Israel is preparing for something bigger?
Well, we don't know that for a fact, but you are correct that there have been a major increase in Israeli operations in the occupied territories. In fact, as we've heard in the report, there's been quite an increase this month. Last year was the highest year of casualties in 20 years, and already this year promises to be even higher than last year. Hence, there is a sort of a tendency among the Israelis to carry more and more operations in the occupied territories under the pretext of fighting terrorism. And as you know, in the international arena, combating terrorism has a certain magical sound to it. It's able to justify anything and everything, even when it's totally infactual, when it's totally incorrect, and when it's totally irrelevant, as in these cases. But when the Netanyahu government is under so much attack in the international arena and domestically by the Israeli Jewish opposition as well as Palestinian opposition, I think projecting that sort of interest over to counter-terror on the occupied territories helps the Israeli government, and hence we could see more and more of that. And also, this is more like a fascist government that is part and parcel of its nature to be carrying these sorts of operations. Hence, yes, we probably could expect all things being equal, that this kind of government will carry more such operations.
The Palestinian Authority is supposed to be in charge of Jenin. Where does this leave the authority when these attacks appear to be able to be carried out with what appears to be very little response or very little defence against them?
Well, look, this is probably the most important question to my mind, because you see, Israel justifies these things on a security ground, right? The idea that they're mowing the lawn, as it were. They're trying to make sure that there isn't much of a resistance on the part of the Palestinians, that there is no armed resistance in such refugee camps as Jenin. But the Palestinians see that as a cynical ploy aimed at humiliating the Palestinian Authority. Because as you said, these are so-called Area A under direct control / semi-sovereignty, if you will, of the Palestinian Authority, according to agreement signed with Israel. And these young people of that refugee camps are just trying to protect themselves from the occupation. It's not like they're going out there in Israel and shooting at Israelis. So it's really meant to humiliate the Palestinian Authority. And that's why what's considered to be security is in fact cynical. And frankly, analytically speaking, it's stupid. Because what is the point of continuously humiliating and weakening your Palestinian partner, the Palestinian Authority, that in fact has been doing you a huge favor over the past 20-something years by safeguarding Israeli security in the occupied territories? So really, this government, more than the previous government, is trying to humiliate and weaken the Palestinian Authority in order to expand its project of settlement, of annexation, and so on and so forth in the West Bank. And that, to my mind, does not lead to diplomacy and peace. It will lead to more violence and war.
This is a level of intensity that we had not even seen really during the latter stages of the previous Netanyahu government. The far-right Israeli politician Itamar Ben-Gvir has said that there will be war with Palestinians at some point in the future. Is there any question, do you think, about how much control Benjamin Netanyahu has over his coalition partners?
You know, once I finished Netanyahu's most recent autobiography, I am now of the mind that Netanyahu himself has changed over the past 15 years. You know, he became prime minister in '96 and then went out and then came back in 2009. And basically, he's been the longest service prime minister. And I think during this process, he himself became even more radicalized than he was an extremist. And judging from his tone, he just thinks that he can get away with everything. In Israel and in Palestine in general, in the Middle East as well. He believes that Israel can continue to repress the Palestinians while garnering great, even wider Arab and Muslim support. And just look what just happened the last 48 hours or 72 hours. He got the blessings of the Jordanian king, and he got security, economic, and other coordination with the monarchy in Jordan, while at the same time humiliating the Palestinians in al-Aqsa mosque and continuing the repression in Palestine. The same thing is happening with the likes of Morocco, the Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and so on and so forth. So this Netanyahu government, this Netanyahu, not just Gvir and the other, smaller fascists, Netanyahu himself, because of the impunity that he has garnered over the years, he's becoming ever more radical, ever more extremist. He thinks he can get away with killing more and more Palestinians, annexing more and more territories, humiliating the Palestinian partners, and getting yet more and more Arab and American and Western support for it. And I think as long as that sort of impunity is the order of the day, Netanyahu is going to continue to carry these sorts of things, these sorts of operations. He's going to even increase them. And we're going to see perhaps annexations in parts of the West Bank. We're going to see massacres. We're going to see a reoccupation of certain cities. And maybe we will see the breakup of the Palestinian Authority. Because clearly this government, this Netanyahu, is getting away with everything. And why not then just expand for more of the same?
That's Al Jazeera's political analyst, Marwan Bashara. Marwan, as always, thank you very much indeed.